We're on the eve of climbing's first Olympic Games. Tomorrow, 40 climbers from around the world will be competing in speed, lead and bouldering on the biggest stage of all. It's a year later than planned, which has given some athletes extra time to train and some extra time to hone their skills, but it's been a long old wait. Over the next week, here at UKClimbing, we're going to be reporting daily as our editor, Natalie Berry, absorbs the atmosphere on the ground in Tokyo.
Hello, welcome to Tokyo. I made it finally after all the stress. It's been about 4 years really of applying for the press accreditation, and then with all the COVID uncertainty it really wasn't a given that I'd get to come here. So I'm just really grateful that I got negative tests and I'm here now. And the entry requirements are 3 days quarantine before you're allowed to do any Olympic work, like go to the events and meet up with other people. So just get used to the heat. It's so hot and sticky at the moment. I don't know how the climbers are going to acclimatise to this at all. But yeah, conditions should be interesting. It's a shame that I'm missing out on some practice sessions that the athletes are doing at the wall, but yeah, it's not all bad. Yeah, it was quite strange driving from Narita Airport to the hotel. There's so much signage for the Olympics and so many people about, like the personnel involved is absolutely crazy. Just loads of people like directing buses and athletes, and it's just pandemonium, but at the same time, like obviously the local people can't go to the events, they can't spectate and they can't congregate in the streets to kind of see what's going on. So it was a bit sad to see that. I can understand why most of the Japanese population don't want this to be going ahead. But so far it seems like the Olympic bubble is kind of working, and you know, there's some cases, but hopefully it'll be controlled. Like even after the 3 days of quarantine, I don't get to wander around. I can't go to shops, I can't go to restaurants. You just strictly have to stay at your accommodation and go to the events on special transport. We're not allowed to use public transport. So there's lots of restrictions, but I think we're just very lucky that this is going ahead and hopefully it can be done safely.
We'll also have some key insights into the events, the athletes and the people behind the scenes. First up though, how will climbing look in the Olympics? Mike Langley gives us an overview of the combined event.
Sport climbing's debut at the Olympics is the combined format. Speed, then boulder, then lead. Speed climbing is a race against the opponent and the clock. The wall is 15 metres high, 5 degrees overhanging. The route, actually envisaged in 2005, gets practiced many times before. The men's world record stands at 5.20 seconds, with the women's at 6.96. The qualifying round, each climber gets 2 runs to record their best possible time. They're not racing against their opponent. That all changes for the final though when they go head to head. It's a knockout. In bouldering, difficulty is key. Strength, power, coordination and flexibility. For each boulder you'll see a start hold, a zone hold midway up, and of course the top hold. The aim of the bouldering round is to test climbers' problem-solving ability on routes set specifically for the event. Every time they come out for the wall, they're climbing on boulders they haven't seen or tried before. The aim of the bouldering round is to get as many tops as possible, and ties are decided on how many zone holds you have reached. If the climbers are still tied after the total number of top and zone holds, it goes back to the number of attempts. In the lead round, climbers are roped up and the aim is to climb as high as possible, clipping protection points along the way. The aim, of course, is to reach the final hold at the top of the wall on a route that's been set specifically for this event. Climbers are allowed a period of 6 minutes to view the route before their attempt. We call this the observation period. After that, they head to an isolation area behind the wall and they do not get to see each other climb. The ranking at the end of each discipline gets multiplied together, and the climber with the lowest score will be our winner.
Shauna Coxsey is Great Britain's most successful competition climber. Now, aged 28, these Olympic Games will be her swan song after she recently announced her retirement from competitions. We looked back at her incredible career to date and caught up with her before she jetted off to Tokyo.
Team GB's Shauna Coxsey started climbing at the age of 4 near her hometown of Runcorn. Sitting on her dad's knee watching a TV programme about Catherine Destivelle, she proclaimed, "I want to do that." A promising start in the youth lead events gave her valuable competition experience. It was inevitable she would transition to senior level, and she specialised in boulder alone. Since her first World Cup win in Grindelwald in 2014, Shauna has won the overall Boulder World Cup twice, in both 2016 and 2017. Her contributions to climbing have already gotten her an MBE. Her talents aren't restricted to competitions either. Shauna is one of the few women to have climbed the grade of Font 80+. With only 3 lead World Cups under her belt, but 1 final and 2 semi-final finishes, Coxsey has an aptitude for lead, helped by her youth competition experience. Although she struggled with multiple injuries in her career, Shauna has an incredible ability to come back stronger than before, which she proved once again in the 2019 Hachioji World Championships, when she returned following shoulder surgery and limited competition participation in 2018 to take an incredible 3rd place and win the Olympic spot.
Injury has definitely been something that I've had to deal with quite a few times throughout my career, and even in the last year or so I've been plagued with multiple injuries and niggles that I've had to battle through. And I think you can choose how you respond to injury as an athlete, and you can choose whether or not you learn from it and use it as a positive experience. And for me, it's been something I've been very conscious to do throughout every single injury, is to come back stronger, to learn about my body even more and really push through that. And it's not been easy, but I think every single injury I've had has shaped me into the athlete that I am today. I think the postponement of the games and coming into lockdowns has changed everyone's lives dramatically. I think there's been so many challenges, and it's really shown how resilient we are as people. And for me, shifting my focus to training indoors and being at home, not indoors, but like in my house quite literally, and kind of taking on those challenges as well as battling injury at the same time. I think it's been a really tough time, but also I'm really lucky that I've been able to train at home and I've been able to keep pushing throughout that time. So yeah, I think life definitely changed pace during the lockdowns and over the last year with the postponement. But my team have been absolutely incredible and really innovative to keep me training throughout, and also to make the most of that time. And yeah, it's been kind of an intense 12 months with the postponement, or 18 months, I guess, now it feels like. So yeah, it's been challenging physically, but also I think mentally, and I think we've learned a lot as a team coming out the other side of that and going into the games this year. For me, preparing for an event, I'm so focused in the process of what I'm doing, and it almost feels like now that the lockdowns and the postponement are just part of that process, and that they haven't really had an impact because it's just been what we've had to do and part of that journey. So yeah, there's been changes to how we prepare, but as an athlete you get very used to dealing with change and dealing with adversity, whether it's through injury or event cancellations or not being able to do certain things. And I think throughout my entire career we've had to be able to react and adapt. And I think, yes, the past 12 months and the pandemic has impacted my preparation, but it's almost not in a negative way, it's just in a way that things change and things happen, and we adapt and we keep moving forwards. And I just feel really fortunate that my team are really good at adapting and really practical people. So if climbing walls closed down, we've been able to keep training at home. and keep kind of that momentum going throughout. My family are a huge part of my life, and they've been at so many competitions with me since the age of 7. You know, when I started competing, they were there then, and they still come to events now. So it's really sad that my family can't travel out to Tokyo, and of course it is. There was a huge clan of them planning on traveling out, and I think it just feels so, I guess it's so unsurprising that they can't come. So in a way, everybody understands the reasons why, and that if the games can go ahead, it should be safely, and this is the decision that's been made. So there's kind of no negativity towards that decision, but of course they're upset they can't be there, and I would love to have them there, but they're so loud. I honestly think that I'll be able to hear them when they're back at home when I'm in Tokyo, to be honest. Experience is the one thing you cannot train. You know, you can go to a climbing wall, you can replicate 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, you can kind of try and make as much pressure around performing at that given moment, but being in a competition, being in that environment, all of the emotion, all of the internal and external pressure that you feel, that only happens when you're in a competition. So experience is invaluable, and for me, I've banked on my experience in many events. Take the Hachioji Olympic qualification for an example. I wasn't in the best shape. I was actually really ill with the flu, but managed to kind of bank on all of that experience to give a performance that was medal worthy and got me an Olympic qualification place. So experience, I think, is, it's impossible to explain how valuable that is. Training for the combined format is so demanding, both physically and mentally, and writing a program that is ideal for training speed, boulder and lead is almost impossible, because you're training such different things. You're training different energy systems, different muscle groups, and then to add the psychological element onto that and the state in which you need to be for each individual discipline, it's fascinating because there's just so much going on. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is juggling all of it. And then if you kind of add niggles or injury on top of that, and then kind of the whole world of kind of media and interviews and the Olympics, everything that comes with that as well. Yeah, it's so much. Like, I wish people could see my diary and see how busy it is, but it's definitely been the case for me having such a good team around me to kind of fill that diary in the best possible way and make sure I stay kind of on track, and also have downtime too, because there's not much time for that. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge is juggling everything. It's so weird to think back on what competitions were like, and it's almost because I've been so involved with it, like I've not noticed the changes and the process and the growth that our sport's been through. And then someone will bring up kind of going to an event when, you know, there weren't bouldering mats, and we're like, oh yeah, like all of these different things happened and the sport has come such a long way. And I think it still has so much further to go as well. Our sport is so young. It needs to keep growing and keep developing on so many fronts, that I think it's good to look back and see where we've come from, but it's also important that we keep pushing for it to be better. I have no idea what I want or think people will interpret our sport like, because I think that that's such a personal thing, and I think it'd be great for people to look at our sport, to see our sport and be inspired. But as someone who's climbed from such a young age, it's so much part of my life. Well, it is my life. From everything I do kind of is connected to climbing in some way. So it's almost an impossible question to answer of what people will interpret the sport like. But yeah, if one person goes climbing because they saw it at the games, I feel like we've won. And I think it'll be a lot more than one person that goes climbing after the games. Or at least I hope so. Announcing my retirement, it felt quite surreal. And I think it's because it doesn't feel like I'm retiring as such. It just feels like a chapter of my professional career is coming to an end, and I'm shifting that focus. I'm going from concentrating on competition climbing to rock climbing, and I still love climbing just as much as I always have done. And it does feel amazing to be able to be in a sport where you can shift that focus and stay as a professional athlete. But to leave competition climbing behind and not be a professional athlete anymore, it's sad for sure. I think all endings are, and I do plan to stay involved with comp climbing because I sit on the International Federation Executive Board, and I plan to continue doing that. I think it's important to me to have a positive impact on where our sport's going and kind of use my voice and use my experience to help shape that if possible. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm kind of going anywhere, but I think all endings are sad to some degree, and it feels like the right time now. And I think I've achieved so much more than I ever thought I would in comp climbing, and I've literally achieved every single goal I've ever set myself. And there's a long list of goals that I have for rock climbing that have just been sat there waiting. So yeah, time to shift that focus.
Stay tuned tomorrow for our first update from the Games. It's the men up first, and they'll be battling in all 3 disciplines.